Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of We Watch Shudder. My name is Michelle, and who's here with me?
Yo, it's JD. What up? That's how I talk now. I don't know why.
You're so cool now. I spent only half a day in a basement playing Zelda, and I came out, and you're like totally hip now.
I know. I'm like a Bart Simpson cool guy.
Wow, I wish I was a Bart Simpson cool guy.
So does everybody else in the world.
If you tuned into this podcast, guess what? You're also a Bart Simpson cool guy. Welcome to the club. Whole bunch of Bart Simpson cool guys just hanging out, watching Shudder. Like the name implies, Shudder is a horror and horror adjacent streaming service, and we watch it and we like it and we talk about it. They don't pay us or nothing. We just give them our money and then free advertising for them. You're welcome.
We've done over 100 episodes of this show, just talking up all this amazing content available on Shudder, still paying our $6 a month. I don't know what that's all about. Maybe one of these days we'll kick them. They'll make us a deal where they'll give us like a year for $50 or something.
I bet the
like,
person.
all right, I'll take it.
I bet the person who determines who they'll sponsor or who they'll allow to be part of that beneficial Shudder program is the same person who writes the Shudder descriptions and is tired of us talking shit about them.
I was gonna say just right off the bat, I'm pretty sure they probably aren't in the business of giving those sorts of perks to people who do occasionally talk mad shit about movies on their service.
We do talk mad shit.
We say some good things. I think, in fact, if you were to go back and look at the overall ratings over those 100+ episodes, I think you find at least one of us genuinely enjoys just about every movie they release. It's very rare that we both absolutely do not like a movie. So that's definitely... Anyway, how did we get on this train of thought, Michelle? I don't even know. We're all just like... Here's what I think it was. Right before we went on air, we were once again making light of the fact that whoever writes these descriptions of the movies for the Shudder website just loves to spoil things. And again, maybe we're just a little bit more strict about our definition of spoilers than some people, but I think when it comes to spoilers, your definition should be as strict as it can be. But then, while we were looking at the descriptions, Michelle, we just got to tell them the name of the movie we're watching this week. It's a new Shudder exclusive just released today. It's called Huesera, the Bone Woman, and is directed by a woman named Michelle Garza Cervera. But if you go to the Shudder website... Michelle, what does it say her name is on the Shudder website?
It says that her name is Michelle Garza Beer. Michelle Garza Cerveza.
They spelled her name wrong. It should be Cervera. They said Cerveza because somebody over there at Shudder got beer on the brain. Probably had a couple of Coronas this afternoon when he thought nobody was looking. Well, it would have been like yesterday afternoon, I guess, or whenever they set this up. Michelle, I saw that and I was like, of all the typos you could possibly make, you actually come up with one where it turns her name into Michelle Garza Beer. I don't know, maybe I'm the only one who's as amused by this as I am, but I'm amused by it, so I'm going to talk about it.
You know what I really hope is that we were trying to figure out, is it Cervera or is it Cerveza? And everything we found online said it was Cervera. And I hope that whoever wrote that on Shudder is the one person who actually knows Michelle Garza Cerveza personally.
That's her real name and everybody else got it wrong.
Everybody, because they're like, no, it can't be Cerveza. And that one person, they're like, I'm trying to right a wrong that the entire internet keeps committing. And you know what? If that's the case, wow, power to you for going against the grain. But
have we welcomed the new listeners yet, Michelle?
They're cool Bart Simpson cool guys.
Oh, right. Yeah, man, this is how crazy. We're barely 5 minutes into this thing. I've already forgotten half of what we already talked about. It's going to be a good time tonight.
Well, hopefully you remembered the movie that we're going to talk about, which is
Michelle,
Huesera, the Bone Woman.
I literally just finished watching this movie not 10 minutes before we started recording this episode. I remember this movie. Let's talk about it. I think it's Huesera, the Bone Woman. directed by Michelle Garza Cervera. You want to hit us with the description from the IMDb website, which once again is significantly less spoilery?
Absolutely. From the IMDb website, Valeria
Which is
has long dreamed.
significantly less spoilery.
Valeria has long dreamed about becoming a mother. After learning that she's pregnant, she expects to feel happy, yet something's off. A Shudder original?
Exclusive.
Exclusive. That makes sense.
It is a
'cause
Shudder
it premiered at the film
exclusive.
festival.
Dun, dun,
Yeah.
dun.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get into our spoiler-free thoughts before we really delve deep into this one. Take a
All
dive
right,
into the
then.
bathtub like is in the poster. That gonna dive right in. Okay.
Do you want to start with your spoiler-free thoughts, Michelle, about Huesera, the Bone Woman?
Sure. My spoiler-free thoughts is that I will never be able to pronounce the title correctly, which is unfortunate because I did enjoy this. I don't know what is happening, but lately we have had a lot of things on Shudder that rely very heavily on sound. This one and The Unheard, and we happen to talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre and how sound plays such a huge part in that. And I don't know if this is a theme or if I'm just becoming more aware of it.
Even movies like Skinamarink and Outwaters, which are definitely a little bit more unique, and I guess I don't like the word experimental, but everybody knows what I mean when I say it, so I'll use it.
Oh, you mean elevated horror?
No, that's still a different thing entirely. Elevated horror, thesis horror. I also hate those terms, but it's fine.
I know you do.
But no, yeah, like we've had a real. The last several movies we've seen, last several episodes, or at least quite a few episodes in the first part of the year here, gotten some real great lessons on the use of sound in horror movies.
Absolutely. And this one is no exception. I think that if they didn't have such good sound, this would have been it could have gone into the boring territory, but the sound just did something that every time there was like a cracking or anything, it really just like it like made my teeth hurt, and that did a lot for me. So I am gonna go with let's do a 4.25 on this one. I do think it relied on the sound, and that if the sound hadn't been such a huge component, I wouldn't have liked it as much, but the sound is so compelling that, you know what, the finished product works for me.
4.25 skulls on Huesera, the Bone Woman from my co-host Michelle. That's anytime you get 4 or higher, that's a pretty successful rating. Spoiler-free thoughts from JD on I'm just gonna call it the Bone Woman. I'm sorry. It's
Smart.
Spoiler-free thoughts from JD on the Bone Woman. I knew as little as I could possibly know about this movie before I turned it on. Here's what I know: it was called the Bone Woman. I managed to successfully avoid all preview material. I didn't read a single promotional blurb. I didn't see a single frame of everything. I didn't even read the website description. I just turned that sucker on. Hot damn, everybody. This one was a banger, 4.5. And that's all. We'll talk about why in the spoiler section coming up here. But god damn, that was a fun movie. I really enjoyed that. I thought it had some interesting depth and you know, I don't want to call it elevated horror. I just think it did some interesting things dramatically and such. I thought the horror elements were real fucking good. Really well executed, really effective. Yeah, this is a good time. I'll probably see this movie at least once more before the end of the year. I'm guessing right around that time I start rewatching a few things to trying to decide what my favorite movies of the year were. But yeah, 4.5 skulls for the Bone Woman.
Nice. So that gives an average of 4.375 human skulls out of 5. So pretty good rating there. If you haven't seen this. Oh yeah,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, you should definitely go check it out. Go in blind like both of us did. I had heard whispers of it, and I had seen the posters, and I try not to let that affect my opinion because sometimes you can be disappointed, but I was very glad that this one kind of lived up to the tiniest bit of expectations that I had heard of from it.
Yeah, this was a good time. I definitely think you might want to go watch this one before we spoiler it up for you. Couple of things. It is It is pretty graphically violent. There's or not. I don't even want to say violent. There is some explicit gore that happens here. A few things that are particularly rough. So definitely go in prepared for some things that, if you're a squeamish person, might make you flinch and turn your eyes away. But it's I don't think it's too overwhelming.
I agree. So if
All
you
right.
don't want us to spoil it, you should pause right now. Did you come back?
I hope they
you came back.
I hope
I bet
every
they
week
never
that
come
they come
back.
back.
I
Sometimes
bet they never
they come
come
back.
They only listen to the first 10 minutes, and that's
Have you
just you
seen
and
that?
I discussing.
Have you ever seen that movie, Michelle? Sometimes they come back.
I've heard the title, but the plot,
I think
have
it's
zero memory of it.
I want to say it was a made-for-TV movie based on a Stephen King short story. It's about some people who come back from the dead, and that's why it's called Sometimes They Come Back. And then there was a
You
sequel.
know what we...
And do you remember what the sequel was called? Get this.
Was it called Maybe We Should Come Back to the Topic at Hand, Huesera?
No, it was called Sometimes They Come Back for
Again?
More.
Oh.
Anyway, yeah,
Great.
Huesera, the Bone Woman. For those few people who maybe didn't bother to go actually watch the movie, first of all, shame on you. We're gonna get you guys watching these movies one of these days. But Michelle,
Some people
do.
I'm surprised by how many people listen and then go check out the movie. Good job, you guys. You're doing it right.
Yeah, we appreciate you. So
Absolutely.
definitely take a moment, Michelle, as you are so much more skilled at this than I am in most cases, and give us a quick run through the plot so that we can then talk about how this movie was awesome.
Well, first off, thank you for thinking that I'm good at this, because every time that I listen to our episodes back, all I can hear is myself going, and then this happens, and then this happens. So if you're listening, drink every time I say,
I don't want to destroy your good feeling from the compliment.
Oh, no.
I do want to clarify that I'm pretty sure what I said specifically was not that you are good at this. I believe what I said was you are better at this than me.
True. Okay, so we're both bad at it, but I am
You're
less
fabulous
bad. You know
at
what?
this,
I will
Michelle.
accept that.
You're really good
I
at this. Guys, okay, before I let Michelle, let's go
Oh, no.
completely off the rails here for just a moment, because it's driving me insane. So we live in Fargo, North Dakota. It's finally springtime here. It's starting to get a little warm. I open up the windows in my house because it's been nice weather, and I like having a cool breeze coming through my house. But, oh, my God, I am apparently getting a direct line of cool breeze direct from the goddamn Fargo landfill. So if I get a little wacky, it might be because of some fumes that I wasn't expecting. I should probably go close that window. Michelle, while you're explaining the plot, I'm going to go close that window.
Good idea. You guys were not here before we started recording, which makes sense because it was before we started recording, but you did not hear how upset JD was about his fresh air becoming not so fresh. Anywhoozle, we're going to just do a quick summary of the plot of this movie, whose name I cannot pronounce no matter how many times I listen to them say it on Google. I think it's Huesera. I can't say it. I'm so sorry. I practiced. I can't do it right. Anyway, there's this woman named Valeria? Yes. And she wants to be a mom, and she's like desperate to be a mom, and she goes to see some ladies who bless her so that she can become fertile, and then she becomes pregnant, and she's like, oh man, oh no, I don't really want this after all. And then a woman, probably the Bone Woman, starts showing up and like breaking into her house and just making her life chaotic and just, creaking and cracking all over the place and doing weird, like, kind of spider crawly things. And she doesn't have a face. What's up with the lack of face? And then Valeria gives birth. And then she's like, oh, no, I don't really like being a mom anymore. This kind of sucks. And then she, like, puts her baby in the fucking fridge. And then she takes her baby out of the fridge. And she was like, I still like you. This is so sad. Let me go do this kind of exorcism thing from these witches who I know. Because, everybody's got to have a couple witchy friends. Hey, Morgan, what's up? And so then they go and they do this spell, and then it turns out the Bone Woman was her all along, and it was a metaphor for how she wanted to be pregnant, and then she decided she didn't want to be pregnant, she didn't want to be a mom, and she realized what the best thing was for her to just leave her daughter alone with her husband and go off to make some woodworking things. The end.
Yeah, that more or less covers. I mean, at least from where I came in, which was right as Valeria was giving birth. I think you gave a solid summation about it. Do you want to talk at first about your impressions of this movie, Michelle? Because I mean, it
Sure.
definitely seems like maybe it wasn't quite. There were some I thought this movie was very I really got into this story, but I had this and I promise this is leading into letting you talk for a while. But I did have this moment watching this movie where I started to wonder, is this going to be a similar situation to a movie like, say, Lucky, where for you as a woman, a lot of this is just like, yeah, no shit, we've been trying to tell you this forever. And that made it, or like a movie even like Watcher, that sort of thing.
Yep.
So did you have any of that throughout this movie, or were you able to really get inside this one?
Actually, this one I didn't have those kind of thoughts of, this is kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like exhausting a topic that we've heard of so many
Sure.
times already. I thought this
Sure.
was a fresh take on something. Apparently
Okay.
this week I am watching a lot of movies about how horrific pregnancy can be, because I just watched Clock yesterday, and I watched oh god, I don't remember what it was called, but I watched another thing about pregnancy
Look
earlier
Who's
this
Talking?
week. Yeah, Look Who's Talking too. Thank you very much. Great
Look
movie.
Who's Talking
Both
now!
the babies can talk.
Oh, it's
Great.
a whole franchise. Great.
Bonus episodes. But yeah, no, this one didn't have that effect on me. Although I was debating adding a section to this episode where we just talk about the people who didn't like this movie and the reviews that they left. And it's a lot of people being like, she has to take responsibility for getting pregnant. And I'm like, oh my God, you completely missed the point of the entire movie. And they're like, there's no horror in this. I was like, did you see the woman fall
What do
off
you-
the balcony and go
There is a
splat
lot
and
of
then
fucking
crickety
horror
crack
in
her
this
way
movie.
all over? I know. They just can't get past the fact that like a woman doesn't want to be a mother, and that's just a thing that they can't get past.
Well,
but I thought
that's part
I
of what
thought,
I'm gonna
like-
love about this movie. Yeah.
yeah, and like I don't have kids. I don't want to have kids. I do wonder if this would be like a general population of people who have already gone through pregnancy, if this would hit them a little bit more, because they'd be like, yeah, you do feel crazy when you're going through it with those hormones, and start wondering like, is this real? Are these hallucinations? And I would be curious to know what their perception of this film is. But overall, I just had a good time watching it. I didn't really care that there was a bigger message of this woman who didn't want to be a mom. I didn't really care. And apparently a lot of the people who left bad reviews, that they cared a lot about her not wanting to be a mom. But for me, I was just having fun, like watching her be all crickety crackety and then giving birth to a baby that she then puts in the fucking fridge. And then she takes
put
the baby out.
in the fucking refrigerator, Michelle.
I know.
What the fuck?
That scene where she is one of the things with sound, okay, this is gonna be like a dual thought thing, because we were talking about like how much I like the bone cracking sound, but it does such a good job of doing sounds that emphasize the overwhelming feelings that she's feeling, like when she's babysitting and she's hearing all those different sounds, and when she just is overwhelmed by that baby crying, and she gets up out of bed, and all we get to watch is this tiny baby monitor, and we're so far away that we can't clearly see it, but we see the arms go into the crib and take the baby away, and then it gets quieter and quieter and quieter, and then she lays down in bed and she can rest peacefully. That is one of my favorite scenes from this, because oh my God, what happened to the baby?
Right, because it gets quieter in such a way where it's not like there's not like a sudden scream or like a sudden. It just gets quieter until you can't hear it anymore, and then she comes back, and what the fuck, man? Also, in that specific scene, I don't know if I actually saw it or if I imagined it. This is a movie I'm gonna have to see again, because the way they play out their what the fuck kind of moments, I am almost certain there are 2 pairs of arms that reach into the crib with the
I am
baby
certain too.
on the baby
Yes.
monitor. Okay, you
Yes.
saw it too. Okay.
Yeah, because the ones that I saw more clearly were the ones that come up from the bottom, but then the baby
I
leaves
saw the ones
from
at
the top
first.
Oh, no, I saw the ones at the bottom first, and then the baby leaves via the top, and then the bottom hands
Wild.
leave a little bit later,
didn't
so that's
even
why I
see
know
the-
there are 2.
That's crazy. I didn't even see the ones at the bottom until after the baby left from the top, and then the ones at the bottom come in. At least as I'm remembering it. That maybe I'm just misremembering it. Anyway, what matters is that was fucking incredible, and that is emblematic of how effective I'm glad you took a moment to look through those and you said people are, what are you talking about? There's nothing horrific in this movie. That whole sequence
It's so
at the beginning
unsettling.
when this has just been a movie developing some characters and building a story where we're like, okay, there might be some angles for weirdness here. And then Val is standing on her balcony smoking a cigarette and she sees a person through the window across the street. And that person does a weird crickly crackly bone thing, climbs out the fucking window and jumps. No sound cues, nothing, no expectation. It just fucking happens. And then she's like in a fucking heap on the street and starts moving. You're telling me there's no horror in this movie? Give me a fucking break, man. And it's all really well done. That sequence when she fucking comes out the door and there's that beautiful shot looking down the staircase and the fucking creepy bone lady goes crawling in. Oh, god damn it. Okay, you talk again for a while. I'm getting carried away.
I absolutely love the lead actress in this. I thought she did such a good job of the way that she's transforming physically throughout this as she's getting more unwell, but she's towing that line of, is this something in your head or is this actually happening? I thought she did such a great job of that. Great makeup department. Oh my God, I could tell when she was exhausted. I feel those days. I'm having one of those days right now. Get some concealer, girl. NARS concealer is the best one out there. Let's get that shipped off to Valeria because she needs it.
You're knocking it out on the podcast front, so thank you.
Good. The ending scene, well, not like the ending scene, but all those bodies crawling towards her in the forest.
Oh, Jesus.
It was kind of funny though, because that's where I mean, like, without the sound effects, I started watching that as though I'm like, oh, this could just be an interpretive dance. They're not even moving too out of control. Like, they weren't doing crazy contortions. They were just kind of crawling. It's that bone cracking sound that does such heavy lifting, but I don't even mind. Like, they use it so well.
And of course they introduced that at the very beginning of the film. When the mother or the older lady is preparing the chicken to cook and she's breaking it open.
Yes.
They establish that sound of cracking bones and that
And
image
you
of
know.
flesh just being torn. And then we hear the bones throughout the rest of the movie. It's one of the most tense, creepy sound effects for me personally. It just fucks me up. And then there are like fucking multiple compound fracture, sudden bone snap and jutting out of a body part moments. Fuck, this movie plays on all of the things, like so many of the things that are just like real specific to me that really fuck me up, and I really appreciated that.
I also have a thing for compound fractures where the bone comes out of the skin like that. I've never experienced it before. It makes me so uncomfortable looking at them. It's one of those things where I just, broken bones, like if somebody's foot is backwards on their leg because they had a skateboarding accident, I can't look at that. And I've seen a lot of those because I used to hang out with skateboarders because I was a cool skater chick, okay? I was so cool back then. I mean, no, I was a poser, but I would hang out at the skate park, but I didn't go down the ramp. I tried once. I got very scared. I bailed. I never did again. Anyway,
but so I actually want to talk for a minute. Like you mentioned also though that you certainly recognize the story here, and I see I saw exactly what you saw, where this is a story about, a woman who started directing her life the way she did because she was tired of her parents being just completely unaccepting of who she was, and she was going to prove them wrong, and she made these decisions, and in the middle of making these decisions, she realizes this is not who she is, this is not who she wants to be, things start going bad, and then ultimately, yes, even though in the supernatural side of things, it at least seems that the curse has been lifted, and the child is going to be fine that way, Val still leaves. And so you did, yeah, I mean, obviously, again, I understand you don't have kids and you have no intention to have kids, but you didn't see any kind of real, significance or have any kind of connection to that story?
I mean, I recognized what was going on. I just didn't feel very passionately like, oh man, you go girl, or else like, oh no, you're a bad person. I didn't have like any emotional connection to it. I was like, oh, this is what they're saying, is that this is kind of like her saying, motherhood isn't for me, I'm out. The fact that she picks up her toolbox is such a poignant thing because she's leaving with so little belongings that it's just a backpack and her woodworking tools, that it's like apparent that they are hammering home that she had to give up so much for motherhood and then realized it wasn't for her, which is an interesting choice to make, but not one that we have to debate right now.
No, because I felt like I feel like what this movie was saying is not necessarily like it's okay to just abandon a child. Like I don't think they're and go do a thing. You know, I feel like
it's more metaphorical than that.
Right. Well, no, and I also feel like because what really brings me to it is like those people you were talking about again in those reviews, where they're like, oh well, she had a kid. Well, why doesn't she just suck it up and have some response? And this movie to me, I think in a lot of ways is saying, you're not necessarily wrong, but in a society where there are such strict conforming expected gender roles or however you want to say it, and things that you're just expected to do in your life, and a kind of person you're just expected to be, and there isn't that acceptance and ability to be free and do things, whatever makes sense for you. Every now and then this is gonna happen, and it's definitely gonna be a struggle. But yes, sometimes the best thing you can do for a child is accept that you are not at all prepared to be responsible for that child. And I mean, you don't want to abandon it, but make sure it's cared for, and then get out of the way. Like sometimes, unfortunately, because of the way our culture is built, like that's gonna happen, and that's something that we have to contend with. And I felt like I don't know. I really appreciated like even the Bones thing. I feel like. I don't know a lot about the two writers of the film. One of them was the director is also co-writer, Michelle Garza Cervera, also written with Abia Castillo. First feature work for both of them. And I find myself wondering if maybe one of them has had a birth experience and was just especially personally traumatized by the physical element of it, the bone cracking, like the sound and the visceral experience of it, because that's driven home as so much of the horror in this movie. I felt like it had a lot of really sort of interesting things to say about those types of situations. I think, like I said, I don't think obviously it's saying, oh yeah, like super women do whatever you want. Just fuck that kid, get out of there. No, it's definitely like it takes some time to get there. I don't know. I'm just kind of freestyling thought here because, like I said, we did come into this about 10 minutes after I finished the movie. But I don't know. Any thoughts in response?
Oh, yeah. So many thoughts and responses. First off, I think it is not saying, hey, abandon your kid if you decide that you don't want it. It's saying
Right.
if your options are leave a baby in a fridge or leave the baby with a caring adult, I think leaving it with the caring adult instead of in a fridge is better. No, I know we agree on that. I'm just saying, like, that's how I would sum it up of like, leave your baby with the dad or leave your baby in a fridge.
Sure. No, well,
Don't do that.
So that's interesting to me, actually, because to me, part of this story is the real severe stuff like that, right? Like almost killing the child, stuffing the child. She stuffs the child in the fridge after she goes through one of those weird bone-crunching pseudo-transformations. And so my impression is that after the ritual is done, that part of it, the trying to kill this child, is not a threat anymore. But she's also saying that, like even with that not being a part of this anymore, I'm still not ready for this. And I'm not the right choice for this child. And if I stay, I'm probably going to make things worse. So I don't know. Did you see it as still the possibility that there might still be some curse effects going on there?
I'm not sure if I thought there was still curse effects going on, but I did think there was a huge realization when the bone woman turned around, had her face, and she realized I've been actually hurting my child or like doing these things to myself. And I think it's more a fear that it could happen again, not necessarily a curse, but like if you're doing this to such an extent that you're realizing you're fighting against it, that's more what it was. Like, not a realization that the curse is still there, but more like, wow, I really didn't want this, and I'm really starting to realize that. I do want to go back to your comment about women saying that pregnancy is horrific, and I have several friends who are mothers who have straight up told me that their giving birth traumatized them, but that it was worth it because they wanted to be mothers so bad. But
I have friends who are mothers who have told me the same thing. Yeah. And
exactly.
So
it's a common thing. Ooh.
Sure. That's also like I took some notes while I was watching this movie because I actually learned something from this movie, and this is an indication of sometimes how little people have actually been educated about things, because I feel like I'm far from perfect, but I think I'm a pretty open-minded and reasonably educated person. I know a decent amount of things actually about how women work. I know the body doesn't have defense mechanisms to shut down pregnancy in cases of assault like that.
What?
But don't you remember that politician just
No,
a few years
I
ago?
absolutely do. Yeah, I'm just surprised that it can't automatically.
What? I thought you were suddenly like, JD, what are you talking about all of a sudden?
No, I was just surprised to learn a thing.
I'm going to be honest with you. I learned something here tonight watching this movie that I didn't know, because there's that whole thing where there's the scene where she tries to seduce Raul while she's part of the way into her pregnancy, and he gets kind of weird about it. He actually he uses the same argument Seth Rogen uses in that Judd Apatow movie Knocked Up. He's like, don't you think it's weird? It's like I'm in there, but then there's also the baby. But then, so ultimately what I'm getting at is she then goes back to seeing Octavia, and she's just like, I'm just like, Jesus, this lady is just horny as shit. And then as it turns out, it's a pretty common thing, especially in the second trimester of pregnancy, to experience a significant increase in sex drive. I didn't know that. That's a thing I know now because of this movie. And they built that into the plot so well, I thought. I found that very interesting. But it's a perfect example of, like, this movie feels like, this feels like a movie that only women could have made. And it's real fucking good. And it opened up, it's an interesting perspective that I've never had the chance to see before. And I thought it was and also, just like I said, the execution on the pure horror scares in this. That whole scene with the lady jumping off the balcony, the creepy fucking sonogram face. What the fuck, man? That fucking just all the shit going on in the background, the stairwell scene. This is so. You know what, Michelle? I've been ranting here. I literally came off this movie I love this fucking movie. This is a 5. I said it 4.5. I've talked myself right into it. I really, really fucking enjoyed this movie. It creeped me out, and it gave me some things to think about. I thought the acting was really well done. I thought her sister and her mom were just the C-wordiest people I have seen in a long time, and kudos to those performers for nailing that tone. I actually have a note that I took at one point that just says, "This family sucks." Like this. I really enjoyed this movie a lot.
A lot of your 5 skull movies are ones that you gave a lower score and then talked yourself up into later on in the episode. That's the thing.
I weird about saying like it's a 5 skull. Here's what happens: is I get worried that I'm just gonna start giving 5 skulls to everything that that I have a good time with. So I'm just like, wait, didn't I just give a 5 skull? Maybe I'll go. No, and then I remember that I don't give a fuck about my score ratings, and this is a really good fucking movie. This is a 5er. I think everybody should see this. This is real good.
An alternative is that you should have a line of your ratings and the monumental movies that kind of encompass what a 2.5 was, a 1 skull, a 5 skull, and really make sure that before you give a movie a score, you sit there and you look at that list for 10 minutes to make sure that your score is relative to all the other movies, and then you start questioning why you didn't give Host a 5, and now you can't give other found footage movies a 5 because you've set that limit, because Host is probably one of the
best
top
found footage movies you've ever seen.
One of Paranormal Activity 2 is really high up there, so it'd be between those two, but I would give Paranormal Activity 2 a 5. Anyway, what I'm saying is that you really just need to, instead of doing your like willy-nilly who cares thing, take 10 minutes, have a panic attack before every episode, trying to figure out exactly what numerical score represents your feelings as a whole about this movie, even if it had significant ups and downs. And what if the person who made this movie finds out and they talk to us on Twitter and they're mad about the fact that we didn't like their movie as much as they thought we should? I still stress about that. I'm not going to name names, but I will say that one director was upset that he did not get higher than a 3, which I think is still very
I think that 3
good.
was pretty low. God, dude, I told people that I think most people would like the movie. It just wasn't so much for me.
I just don't want to hurt people's feelings, and I thought a 3 was good. Anyway, you should just sit there and you should stress for like 10 minutes and make sure that you renew your Xanax prescription before every episode that we record. It's a really healthy way to live your life. I also drink a gigantic Red Bull, so I'm in a great mood.
I was about to say we were a good 3/4 of the way into that little tirade before it finally did dawn on me. Oh, she's talking about what she does herself. I get it.
Yeah.
I'm not the quickest. Yep. I'm not the quickest bulb in the box, Michelle.
I mean, I've never seen a light bulb be very fast. I've seen them be bright, but I've never seen a light bulb when I open the box. I'm like, holy shit, that guy's speedy.
Yeah,
the quickest light bulb.
I'm not the sharpest pig in the slop. That's not a thing.
I do have to go back and comment on one thing because you were kind of like mid-rant, and then I didn't get to throw this in there. Okay. But wow, she got really horny. And I feel like instead of the bone woman, this should have been the boner woman.
Oh,
the boner woman, JD, because she had pregnancy hormones and she wanted to bone.
Oh, she did. She was
the bone-in woman.
She was she was looking to fuck. Like that's she was like there's
totally looking to fuck.
I'm glad you came back to that though, because it is another thing that I want to point out. I mentioned that I feel like there are things in this movie that just seem like they're uniquely from a female perspective. There are several like moments of sexuality and nudity in the film, and everyone has each one of them has its own unique tone. Like, first of all, one of the early scenes is Raul and Val having a quick get it on because they're trying to have a baby, right? And she's in her ovulation window or whatever they call it, and like it's clear it's one of the most unique sex scenes I've ever seen in a movie because it's clearly not like they're bored and detached and they just have no interest or anything like that, or that it's unsatisfying. But it's also not like passionate, like they're not fucking, right? Like it's not. It's just like it's honestly it's one of the most charming, just awkward in a real interesting and light way sort of things, and I really enjoyed that. That scene in the bathtub, first of all, beautiful homage to The Shining. It's a very common trope these days, but I always love it when I see it. That overhead angle, and so there's a nude woman in the tub, but again, just the way it's presented, it's one of the most it's not a male gaze nude woman, right? It's not even remotely sexualized on any level. And you can feel, I can tell you as a person who has been fortunate enough to be, or however you want to say it, privy to all of this male gaze content that's been going out in the world, this shot feels different. And it allows you to get away from that and get more connected to, or at least it did for me, obviously, to what's going on in that scene. Also, do you think she was trying to drown herself in that bathtub scene, or was she just having a kind of a moment and putting her head under and screaming a little bit before we switched into that flashback?
Oh, I think she was just having a moment.
Okay.
There wasn't anything that made me think like she wants to die. She was definitely having a mental breakdown, but as someone who has those weekly, I get it. Yeah.
I was just going to conclude because then they also get into then the relationship between her and Octavia, and the implication in the story, of course, is this is more of the authentic Val in some ways. And then there is a much more sort of intense kind of heat and emotion there. But I loved the way they were able to play with those elements and create sort of feelings and experiences around them that I don't think I've ever personally at least seen more than maybe once or twice before. I really enjoyed that.
I just liked Val as a person, and when I was trying to figure out why, it's because she's sweet. And we don't see that very often in movies where it's not a gimmick. You know, they're not a sweet side girlfriend and somebody is cheating on them. You know, like that's a thing we see a lot. This is a movie about a just genuinely nice, sweet, kind of off person. Obviously, she's human. She has her flaws and she has her trauma that she's getting over. So she's got those elements, but she's just generally a kind person. And we don't really see that too often unless it's all their personality is in a movie. So I think that's part of it, is you don't feel like you have to look at her with a male gaze the whole time. She's just a nice lady.
Yeah, and also in that same sort of vein, I did enjoy that Raul is never made out to be a bad guy here in any way either. He doesn't become abusive at any point. There are moments where he's real upset because, of course, the things she's talking about, that's hard shit for anybody to believe, right? Like, he's what's easier to believe? Somebody's unfortunately going crazy, or you're cursed by an evil spirit of some kind, right? And he's just clearly wanting to try and keep his child safe and figure out what's going on with his relationship. And you can even tell, I think, in that very last scene that he's also kind of at peace with them going their separate ways and what this situation is. It feels like there's no animosity there, and I kind of liked that element of the presentation as well.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add. All I will say
I do.
is maybe. Oh, well, let me
No,
say
I'm
my
kidding.
one comment, and then you
I'm
can
kidding. I
rant
don't
till
No.
till the cows come home.
Go
Moo.
ahead.
Um, well, now my comment's gonna be stupid if it's the last one on the show. I was just gonna say maybe she put the baby in the fridge because she thought it would keep longer. She's a first-time mom. She doesn't understand that you don't need to. She's like, oh, I keep like my produce in there and it stays fresh for longer. I really like this baby. I want to make sure it's got that fresh new baby smell that everybody loves. So she put it in the fridge and she was just confused. Maybe that's what's going on. Maybe Val just needs like a teacher to get her through this.
I tell you what, that whole baby in the refrigerator sequence was real interesting to me because, like, I mean, we've talked about how bad things happening to babies is a real tough spot for me, right? Like,
yeah, I thought of that when I saw that
I feel
scene.
like you really, I don't think it's something that's just beyond the pale at all times, but I think you really have to earn it. And there's a moment in that scene where she's running just crazy-eyed through the house trying to figure out what the fuck happened to that baby. And in that sequence where she goes into that sort of living room and she sees the window is open from behind the curtain and she just stops in horror, it didn't register to me at first that the open window behind the curtain is what she was looking at in horror until she went over to pull the curtain aside and look out the window. I was so worried about what might be happening here that I thought it was one of those old school Alfred Hitchcock things where she had come into a room and we see her reaction to something before we ever see the thing. And for a moment I was fucking terrified about what we were about to see that she has done to this baby. I thought this might be some kind of fucking Hannibal Lecter Blood Eagles stringing up that dude in the prison holding area in Silence of the Lambs. I was not looking forward to that, and then I actually felt left off the hook. And then she hears it from the kitchen, and I'm like, oh God, like my first thought, of course, is did she put it in the oven? Oh my God, what the fuck? And then I was like, and I don't even know why, but there's just something about what the fuck she put the baby in the refrigerator for how long? At least several hours. What the fuck, man? I don't know. There was just something about baby. That's the thing about this movie I will never forget. That fucked me up. I don't know why, but it did.
That fridge wasn't even turned on. It was room temperature. The baby was fine. She's this weird woman who like just leaves her fridge unplugged and it's just like another closet in her house. She basically just put the baby in like the kitchen closet. But it just happens to look exactly like a fridge. See, that makes it less traumatic. If it was just a room temperature dark room.
So unique and bizarre about that. What the fuck?
Yeah. If you're listening, don't put babies in a fridge. If you're anywhere near a baby and you're like, hey, maybe I should put this baby in a fridge, don't do it. That's a PSA from your friends that we watch Shudder. Don't put babies in fridges.
When that little boy was giving Val shit about dropping the baby when she was a kid, I don't give a fuck whose kid that was. I wouldn't have been able to control myself. I would have slapped the fuck out of that little boy. And I probably would have gone to jail and I probably would have deserved it. But I can't lie. I wouldn't have been able to stop myself. I would have smacked that little shit. Holy fuck.
So JD's philosophy is don't put babies in fridges, but do smack the shit out of kids if they're
No,
shitheads.
JD's philosophy is don't put shithead kids in front of JD because he doesn't have real good impulse control when he's upset.
Okay, that's fair because, oh man, when he was limping later on, I was like, fuck yeah. I don't even care.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, fuck that little fucker. Oh, she's got a little scratch on her arm? Fuck her. She's a little bitch all night long. Anyway. Guys, at this point, if you haven't seen the movie and we've spoiled all this stuff, I do still think it's worth your time to go check it out. I upgraded to a 5. I talked myself right into it with all the passionate rants I got caught up on here. I really enjoyed this one. I will for sure be talking about this when we get to the end of the year.
Excellent. I will not, but I will listen to you talk about it.
Well,
what
else can they hear us talk about, Michelle?
They can hear us talk about new, originally exclusive releases on Shudder every week, or at least on the weeks that Shudder decides to put something out, which apparently has changed to Fridays, and which does mean that Michelle's personal schedule needs some rearranging because all my Fridays are taken up for the podcast. You guys should know that I love you, and that should be apparent from the fact that I took a break from Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I was at a really good spot. And I'm here recording this fucking episode. So I'm glad it was least a good movie.
I'm
if
sure
it was a bad
there's
movie, I'd be so upset.
there's a female gender equivalent for it. But Michelle has just been fucking otakuing it up today. Just fucking crawling around the basement, playing video games, probably shouting at John upstairs to bring her Mountain Dew and Doritos.
Oh, no. Okay, so it wasn't Mountain Dew and Doritos.
But you did shout for John to bring you snacks and beverages.
I sent him a message and said, what would it take for you to bring me Red Bull and chips with queso? And he did it.
Well, of course he did. He's a loving husband and a good man. You might want to consider the kind of person you are for sending such a request.
I know, but he did it, so it will happen again because, it worked. So I have not learned my lesson.
Also, we went to Time Bomb Pro Wrestling last night. I had a moment of dog guilt and had to leave early. It's a thing, guys. Don't judge me. Michelle was able to stay for the whole show. Michelle, don't tell me anything, please, about the second half of the show. It will be going up on YouTube in the very near future, and I want to be completely... obviously I know how some of the matches ended, but you can kind of figure that out anyway if you pay attention to how things go. But I'm really looking for... What was your overall opinion, though, of the main event, Jordan versus the bounty hunter, Brian Keith?
What I will say is that every show I've been to and seen live, I have not rewatched on YouTube. I will be rewatching this on YouTube. Several matches in the second half. You were there when Fonzie and Shane Black.
Oh God!
You were at least there for that one.
Good
oh my God,
Bill
that was
Alfonso. Man is 66 years old. He's in a pro wrestling ring, beating people up with trash cans and kendo sticks. Damn near injuring audience members. Anyway, none of these people were at Time Bomb Pro Wrestling. If you're in the Fargo-Moorhead area, you should absolutely come to Time Bomb Pro Wrestling. Go to YouTube. Just put in Time Bomb Pro. They got their own channel. The last 3 shows, I believe, are up there for full-length streaming. They got some special bonus matches as well. Check that out. We love to sponsor them. What's the movie that they're dropping next week that we're going to be talking about, Michelle? Do you remember the title? I don't.
Consecration. And it's got Jenna Malone in it. Oh, right.
Yes,
Consecration? Communion? Consecration?
I don't know a whole lot about it, except that I do remember hearing about it a while back. And, of course, what sticks out to me about it is the fact that Jenna Malone was in it. I've seen her in several things. I'm somewhat of a fan, and so I'm looking forward to that. Check us out on all the social medias. We're on Facebook. Well, not all of them, 4 of them. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter for now, and TikTok at We Watch Shudder for all of those things. We've got a website. It's called WeWatchShudder.com. You can check out our
It has new squelches.
You got ahead of me. You can go check out our Ghoul blog, read some of our writings. We write things as well as talk about things. Michelle continues to go completely ape shit over the Squelch files. 600 collected images of squelching subtitles from a story. Squelching is the greatest word in the history of mankind, is the whole point here, guys.
Yeah.
But it's cool stuff there. Shoot us an email, mail@wewatchshudder.com. Give me a phone call, 701-412. No, that's probably a bad idea. Maybe one of these days. Are you going to give them my number?
You're like, give us a call at, and I'm going to be like, fuck, no.
Thankfully, ever since
years.
the invention of saving contacts on your phone, I don't remember anybody's fucking number but my own anymore. So
Smart.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Do you have anything else left to say, Michelle?
The bone woman, more like the boner woman. Am I right?
Say good night, Michelle.
Good night, Michelle.